Hi, it's Dion here. I wanted to get on and talk about a subject that I've been seeing a lot of videos being made on YouTube and other places that I've seen where they're discussing the issue of the stigma surrounding methadone and even medications such as Suboxone and Vivitrol. The stigma, when I say stigma, what I mean is people have this impression that when you're on medication such as methadone and the other two that I mentioned, that you're cheating, that you're really not in recovery, that you're still using, and it's all a bunch of bullshit. Well, I've been on methadone for the better part of almost 13 years. And I can honestly tell you, I've never gotten a high from it. Never. I've never even gotten a buzz from it. What it does for me is it totally takes away the craving to use out of my mind. I'm not even thinking about using. The thought to use doesn't even resonate in my head. It's like it's completely disappeared. I don't have any craving or any thoughts of using, and for somebody like me who couldn't even go to 24 hours without using, and the one time I actually went maybe a month and a half without using, it was awful. It was the most excruciating thing I ever went through, as far as the mental part of it. It was awful because I was consumed with the thoughts of using nonstop. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't try to focus on something else, because even when I did try to think about something more positive and something that was a better thought for me to be thinking about, it always went back to the using. It always kept rotating back to the using. And I'm talking about sitting there fantasizing about cooking the dope up, pulling it up in the syringe. That is how bad it was. That is the kind of thought process that I had at that time. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And I was watching videos, and I asked a couple people, I said, when does the craving to stop using go away? And somebody said, never. It never goes away. You will always crave this drug for the rest of your days. But the longer you stay clean, the easier it gets. So I'm like, okay. Because that 6 weeks or so that I was clean, on my own, it was miserable, but I went to meetings as much as I could, and I thought they were going to help. They did nothing to help curb the craving. I was just as miserable with going to the meeting as if I had not gone to the meeting. It was agonizing, and I eventually went back on heroin full time again because it just didn't make sense for me to live that way. I thought, if this is what recovery is about, I don't want it. I don't want to feel this way. I felt miserable. I felt miserable in my own skin. It was an awful feeling, and I don't wish that feeling upon anyone, because it's an awful way to feel, and it's an awful way to try to conduct one's life. If they were going to tell me that I had to feel that way for a year or two before it subsided and started to get better, I would take it and shove it up your ass, because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with feeling like that for a couple years. I really don't even think I could deal with it for a couple months. It's like, no way, I can't do it. It's not that I looked for the easier way out. I looked for the only way out that I could pick at that point in time for myself, because nothing else was working. I couldn't stay clean on my own. Not for any long amount of time. The longest I was able to stay clean on my own was about 6 weeks. Maybe 7, stretching it. But give or take 6 or 7 weeks. And it was the most agonizing, miserable experience of my life. And if you're going through anything like that, if you're feeling anything like that, where you quit using, maybe you went to detox, maybe you went to a 30, 60, 90-day program, what have you, and you're back home in the real world again, and it's like, if you're struggling and you're thinking, God, I really just still want to use, these feelings haven't gone away, I'm certainly not going to tell you, well, go get on methadone. Just go get on methadone, it'll solve your problem, okay? Methadone isn't for everyone, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. It's not something that I think everyone is appropriate for everyone. Okay, I would first of all see what your options are. Okay, because they do have medications like Suboxone and Vivitrol. Depending how bad the cravings are, depending how bad your addiction was, that's what makes you a better candidate for methadone. If you were strung out on heroin for anywhere between 5 to 10 years or longer, and you were using, larger amounts of heroin than the average 1 or 2 little bags, then I would definitely say methadone might be an option for you. But before you make that decision, I would say go to a clinic, talk to the intake people, explain to them what you're dealing with, and ask for a little bit of advice. Say, I'm struggling. I know methadone is an option. I'm not 100% sure I want to go down that path, but I'm definitely want to find out more about it. I want to find out, what's all involved with this. What would I be, signing up for? What would I be obligated to do? Okay, find out as much as you can about the clinic that's near you, if you're even considering going down that route. Now, if you are determined and you're bound and determined that you want to do it, 12 steps, NA, AA, what have you, hey, I'm not discouraging it. Do what you think is best for you. But if you've gone down that route already more than once, if you've gone through the AA and you've gone to multiple treatment centers, and you complete them successfully, which you always go back to using, that's when I say, now you need to consider other options, because you've already tried this several times and it's not working. If it didn't work once or twice or even 3 times, it's probably not going to work the 4th time either. Okay, it's just my opinion. I could be totally in the dark what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about from experience, from what I've experienced and from what I've learned from gathering experience from other addicts who have been in very similar situations. That is true that maybe the 4th time is a charm and you're going to get it. But a lot of times you go to those programs, you do your best, you put 100% of your effort in it, and when you don't make it, you're made to feel like you failed. You failed, That's why I'm not a big advocate of 12-step NA, AA, because they have a way of blaming you for not doing well and not succeeding after you left treatment. Okay, if you're not succeeding after you leave treatment, it's not your failure, okay? It's the failure of the treatment center, because they obviously did something wrong that you couldn't make it once you left treatment. It's easier to be clean in treatment because you've got eyes on you all the time, and it's pretty hard to go in the bathroom and shoot up and get away with it, because they've seen what you look like sober, and if you come out looking very different and your eyes are all pinned and stuff, it's going to be a pretty big giveaway that you're under the influence of something. But what I'm telling you is, if traditional ways of getting clean, the 30, 60, 90-day treatment centers, and the AA and NA has not been successful in your life, look for other options. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be methadone. Just because that was my means of getting into recovery doesn't have to be yours. I am not, yes, I'm an advocate for methadone, but I'm not the type of person that's going to push it on people and tell everybody Oh, you have a heroin opiate addiction? Get on methadone. Get on methadone. I'm not, that's not how I look at things. Everyone is different. Everyone has a very unique story and a very unique means of what they want to use as far as their path to recovery. What I suggest is finding what other options are out there other than just the abstinence only model, because that's just one way of getting clean. There are others, okay? You could look at Vivitrol. That's something that it's not going to help with cravings, okay? So that you need to really be aware of what you're struggling with. Is it the cravings? Is it environment? Is it people that you used to hang out with are continuously reaching out to you and you're trying to avoid them, but every time you see them, it's a temptation to you? Those are a different set of circumstances that need to be addressed quite differently. But if what you're dealing with is cravings and you're dealing with massive obsession over wanting to use, that's when I say an alternative like methadone or even Suboxone could be quite helpful. And I would say, if you had a pretty serious heroin problem, if you had just a painkiller prescription problem like Vicodin or Loratab, I don't think methadone is appropriate for you. I think that is more geared towards somebody with a much stronger opiate addiction, like heroin or fentanyl. But Suboxone could be more of an appropriate means of recovery for somebody who is just dealing with Loratab or Percocet or something like that. And the reason I say that is because many years ago, when I was struggling with a pill addiction to Loratabs, I got on methadone. Okay, I shouldn't have done it because one weekend I couldn't make it to the clinic, or I missed getting to the clinic on a Saturday, so I didn't get my Saturday dose or my Sunday dose. And sickness, I can't even begin to tell you how sick I was. It was the worst experience of my life. Well, one of the worst experiences of my life. I've been through a few, but it was an awful feeling because I had never gone through withdrawal like that before. I never experienced withdrawal. This was agonizing. And I thought, wow, is this what people go through when they're coming off heroin and stuff? It was a very short time after that incident occurred that I found a way to get off that clinic as soon as I possibly could, because I knew that I jumped on something that was much more potent than what I was originally taking in the first place. Methadone is more geared for people who have a really strong opiate addiction, and when I say opiate, I'm referring to medications or illicit drugs such as heroin or fentanyl or something along those lines. Hydrocodone, I'm not trying to downplay your addiction. I had an addiction to Loratabs, and it was a horrific addiction. I felt like I couldn't get out of bed without a handful of pills. It was awful. But in all honesty, the methadone was not the right fit for that addiction. It was too potent than what I was getting the treatment for in the first place. That's more reserved for people who have a stronger, more long-term addiction and are using intravenously. If you're just popping pills orally, that's another reason why Suboxone might be a better choice for you. If you're intravenously using or even intramuscularly using, and you're only taking pills and you haven't transferred over to shooting heroin, I wouldn't get on methadone because, you know, if you plan on getting off the drug, if you're not going to be a lifer and stay on it forever, and I would think if you just had an addiction, when I say just had an addiction, I know it sounds like I'm underplaying what you're going through. I don't mean to do that. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I'm saying is, in comparison to other opiate addictions, it's a rather milder, it's a more milder type of addiction than like a heroin addiction. Heroin addiction, when you come off heroin, it is a horrific, terrible withdrawal. Trust me, you never forget what you went through coming off heroin, because it's a very memorable experience, and not memorable in a good way, memorable in a really bad way. But Suboxone is a little bit more appropriate for somebody who's struggling with a pill addiction. And when I say pill, I mean something more low grade like Lortab, even oxycodone. And when I mean oxycodone, I mean Percocet. Oxycontin, pretty potent stuff that may be appropriate, and methadone might be a good avenue for an oxycontin addiction. But oxycontin is not very popular these days because they have made their pills deterrent from being able to break it down, inject it, or smoke it, or what have you. You can't do that anymore because they made the pills indestructible. And I know from personal experience, I tried to break it with a hammer. They are indestructible. Take it from me. But my point, what I was trying to get across, is that methadone is so stigmatized in this day and age, and it's ridiculous because, you know, we have an opiate crisis going on where people are dying left and right and center from these drugs. Fentanyl being the one that's rearing its ugly head at the moment. I don't know what'll be the next thing that'll come up, but fentanyl is definitely the big bad guy at the moment. And people are dying every day from this. And I'm talking about young people, anywhere from their late teens into their early 20s. These are people that are young and still should have had their whole life ahead of them. But, sorry, hold on a second. I mean, it's awful to see these young people. Some of them haven't even graduated high school yet. And, they start young. Kids are starting with the drugs younger and younger. Between 12 and 14, they're experimenting with marijuana. And then they move on to other drugs. And before you know it, they're doing hardcore drugs on a regular basis. And a lot of these parents, unless a parent is well educated on addiction and what is all involved in addiction, it's hard for them to pick up the cues that are being laid down in front of them. Their kid is on drugs and they need help. But honestly, when a kid is just getting involved in drugs, they may not be ready for help. There is a whole blueprint, or I don't know how to put it. There's a plan of how an addict's life goes. The experimentation stage, then into the dependent stage, then addiction stage, and they have to be, in order for them to want to quit and change their life, something dramatic has to happen in their life. So there has to be a loss of some sort. Something dramatically has to happen to make them say, enough is enough, I need to change. And when parents keep cushioning the bottom for them, so they never really feel that pain and suffering that they need to feel in order to get off the shit, they never get off it. You have to allow them to go through whatever they need to go through. I mean, whether it be good or bad or what have you, they need to go through it, they need to experience it firsthand, and it's only when they experience some of the ugliness associated with addiction that they're more willing and more wanting to make changes. You know, for me, my lowest point was giving birth to a baby that was addicted. And when the doctor came in, literally hours after I gave birth, and offered me methadone to help me clean up my act and get my life back, I jumped at the opportunity. And within the first 48 hours of being on the methadone, I remember waking up every morning and saying, my God, this feels like freedom. I actually said out loud in my hospital room, I sat up in my bed and I said, my God, this feels like freedom. And I remember that so vividly in my head, because it was the first time in 7.5 long, miserable years that I felt a sense of freedom. I wasn't stressing about getting money for my drugs for tomorrow. I wasn't stressing about when the dope man was going to arrive with my drugs. I was free from all those feelings. And let me tell you, that methadone worked a miracle in my life. I never thought I could be free of the craving to use. I thought it was something I was stuck with and I would deal with to the end of my days. And I think I mentioned in other videos that I got off of it after so many years. And when the craving to use came back so strongly, I decided to go back on the medication because it was not worth me losing everything that I worked so hard to build in a short period of time because of heroin. I was not going to let that happen. But I'm going to end this video now because I'm getting ready to start work. But, you know, I don't know how informative I was about the stigma of heroin. I kind of went off topic a bit, but I just want to stress that in this day and age, we shouldn't be making people feel bad for the path they took to get into recovery. We should just applaud them for getting in recovery and praise the fact that they're making a better life for themselves. You know, we can't focus so much on the route that was taken. Let's focus on the fact that their life is getting better. They're not committing crimes. Their health is improving. Those are the things we need to focus on. That's pretty much all I want to say for today. And hope to talk to you guys again soon. Take it easy. Bye.